round number 2 for me with the Vistage speaking endeavor. So if I do 3 of these and get decent scores, then Vistage won't make me quit. So I'm enjoying it. It's great to get the word out. It's great to meet local people in Austin, talk to them about what we do, and help them out with what they do. So like Chad said, we really, in our clinic, it's right there at 42nd Lamar. My wife really runs the women's health side. I focus kind of on the male longevity side. There's a lot of crossover though between the two. The majority of our patients and clients already have a medical doctor, a functional care provider, a lot of times a concierge medical provider, but they don't have anybody to hold their hand with the day-to-day stuff. So the doctor will do the prescriptive and diagnostic side. We'll do the actual intervention when it comes to the exercise physiology, nutrition. The other practitioners we have in our clinic, we do have one MD on staff, focuses more on acupuncture and pain management, but we've got Pilates, acupuncture, manual therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, massage, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll do training and conditioning as well. The issue we see a lot with our clients coming in is that longevity's gotten to be real big, real sexy, real hot right now, and it becomes overwhelming for most people. So the tendency is really to overreach, to overdo, certainly to overspend, and to be overwhelmed. So the part we play is really to be the quarterback, sort of the central, the hub, the concierge, like Chad phrased it. So we really show people how to integrate a plan into their own life and make it practical and approachable, and certainly a whole lot of formula. So if I had an overall theme for today, that's really it, right? When it comes down to it, longevity at the end of the day is not the high sex appeal stuff that we see in social media, online, that we read about. It's not running down the beach half naked. That's not longevity, at least practically as we see it. But in the media, that's kind of how it's portrayed, that if you spend enough money and you invest enough time, you can get a result. If you take enough drugs, if you take enough supplements, if you do enough extreme dieting, you'll get what you want to get. What we try to do is help people find out the difference between what has a lot of sex appeal and the tried and true lifestyle habits that we all know get us to the road and really move the needle, okay? There's a lot of information to cover, but since we have a smaller, more intimate group, I really want it to be as conversational as possible. So if any of you have any questions, something doesn't make sense, if I say something weird about vaginal estrogen cream that doesn't rhyme, Marcy's gonna let me know. So if anybody needs clarification or wants to get into something more specific to your situation, please don't hesitate. This is really the space that we counteract a lot in my clinic, the whole biohacking sphere. So people will get really, really excited about what has sex appeal in the industry, the stem cells, the GLP-1s, the cold plunging, the infrared sauning, none of which are bad modalities. And a lot have great evidence and do great things, but they're not gonna move the needle for the people who aren't living and eating well. And that's the differentiation we try to make. So I have a lot of clients who own their own cold plunge, and we have really cool evidence. The good news is we'll be fighting about that for the next 40 years as to whether or not it makes you live any longer. And in 30 or 40 years, we'll find out who was right. For right now, we know there's a lot of good data on regulation of nervous system. If somebody has depression, anxiety, this is an immediate fix. It can help with sleep, it can help with hormone balance, especially when you combine it with other extreme temperature therapies. But these are more extreme marginal type behaviors that just aren't gonna take the place of eating, exercising, and living well. So if somebody wants to do this on the margin, we'll certainly help them code it into their program, but it's not the foundation of what they do. My wife has an infrared sauna, she loves it. With my peri and postmenopausal patients, it works great for detoxification, lymphatic drainage, hormone balance, but she's only in there after she's already exercised, done her yoga practice, done her deep breathing. So this is an add-on. And we've never seen a patient in our practice that's been with a functional medicine practitioner that's not taken 30 to 40 pills a day. So I've got people that take $800 to $1,200 a month worth of stuff. None of it's regulated by the FDA. All of it has ingredients in it that aren't listed. It's a tough sector. So whether they stuff it into their face or stuff it straight into their veins, we try to convince them that if they have a deficiency, supplements have a role in their life, but if they're not eating well, that's not gonna make the difference. So I'd like to get them eating well first at least 80% of the time. Then if they have a deficiency, they don't have enough vitamin D, they're never outside, they need B12, they're not methylating, whatever that is, they need more protein in smoothie form for convenience only, we'll work with them with proper supplements, but that's not gonna be the healthy base for diet and nutrition. Especially if they just don't eat enough, period. So we've been fighting about intermittent fasting and fasting with regard to longevity since the 90s, and we'll probably be fighting about it for a whole lot longer. I can assure you that as we stand now, unless you're a rhesus monkey or a fruit fly or a bat or a rabbit or a lab rat, that's not gonna make you live any longer. And fasting, especially intermittent fasting, works really, really well for two populations in this entire world, and they're both male. So we'll get more into the details of this as we go along. We really, really discourage this practice for our female patients. They don't see the beneficial outcomes that men do hormonally, biochemically. We'll get more why, but that's a really big, interesting part that we teach a lot of our female patients, especially when you combine it with GLP-1 and semaglutide therapy. Now, these are amazing, life-changing drugs. For my clients that have spent their lives as a couple hundred pounds overweight, or they have food noise they just can't silence, they've been diabetic for a good amount of time, this will change the game for them, certainly short term. But our medium and long term concerns are when people start to lose fat-free mass, their bone density goes down. I can change someone from diabetic to non-diabetic, but if it compromises her osteoporotic risk long term, then I still need to try to get her off that as soon as possible. And even though short term people can use these methodologies to lose a lot of weight, the majority of the weight they lose is muscle. And we'll get into the talk later and see how strength and fat-free mass management and maintenance as I age is one of the best ways I can keep from getting hurt. So you can do whatever the hell this is. This is a biohacking clinic out in West Austin. If you spend enough money, you can sit in a box, breathe hyperbaric oxygen while you watch TV or check Netflix. I don't have any problem if my client has the time and the money and they really want to do this. But if he messages me and said, hey, I know I had a 25-minute bike ride I had to do today in zone 2, I didn't have time because I was in the box watching TV, I might raise an issue with that, right? So again, yes, I may burn more calories, I might hyperoxygenate my tissue, but is it really gonna take the place of me exercising? If I do both, great, but if I do it as a substitute, that's where I draw the line. We've all been guilty of falling prey to the quick fixes, right? This is me wearing my wife's red light mask to see if my skin could look as good as hers in 30 days, and I regret to inform you guys that the results are pretty grim here. But in 2020, this whole landscape changed for my entire industry. So when Attia hit the scene, he took a lot of the mechanisms and the treatment profiles that we were using in our training and coaching and nutrition counseling, wrapped them all up and organized them into this catch-all term of longevity and slapped a big MD behind it. So he immediately gave the industry a whole lot more credibility. So he started demanding of his industry in medicine so that we could demand the same thing of our doctors, more of a preventative long-term approach to care. So instead of doctors just providing medications, giving us surgeries that we didn't need, whatever the most billing codes would allow, we could really focus on how do I just live better for longer? Maybe not longer per se, but how can I increase my health span and have more high quality years? So we use a lot of his mechanisms in our approach to what we do counseling patients, primarily because most people have already read that book or seen a lot of the podcasts or watched Huberman and come in and say, hey, guys, I read Outlive, I've watched a couple of podcasts, I come away with like 3 hours of crap I have to do a day. I have to run a business, I've got kids, I've got family, I don't have time to do all this. Where do I start? And what we try to do is hack that down for them to an 18 to 25 minute daily program that they can actually follow. So if they had 3 hours a day and plenty of time and they can have a full coaching staff, that's a very infinitesimal number, right? So we deal more with real world, hands-on people that need to be guided through that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Who's read the book?
Everybody read the book here?
I have the book, but I haven't read it.
Skip to section 3, it's way more fun.
Okay.
That's like the nutrition, exercise, phys, workout. The first part is everything that you can die of and why, and it's real technical and it's pretty macabre. So you can go back and read that if you want, but the nerd in me loved the first part, most people don't. He talks a lot about exercise as key to longevity, which is really what's brought our industry to the mainstream when it comes to wellness, which has been great for us. And he divides it down into 4 key pillars. The first one's strength. So we know that if I can keep my client strong as she ages, she has less risk of chronic disease, way less risk, virtually zero of osteoporosis. She's not gonna fall, she's not gonna get hurt, she's not gonna have to give up the stuff that she loves doing. But I can't train her like that, right? There's some caveats here. If I bust up my client's tissue before he's out of the studio and keep injuring him, I'm just like every trainer since the 80s, right? I'm just banging people up, jacking them up. That's not longevity, that's not wellness. Certainly not medium to long term. So they have to be just as stable as they are strong. So you'll see in these 4 pillars where he breaks them down, there's a lot of synergy. Because ideally, I would like my client to hit the ground and bounce because he's strong enough, but it'd be really perfect if he just didn't fall in the first place. So that combination is really key. And he has to have the endurance to be able to do those movements and perform that stability over and over and over again. Nobody signifies that, even with his reputation this time more than Lance. So we do aerobic conditioning definitely as part of the program. The big key mistake people make is, especially my aerobic clients, they way overdo this side. And my weightlifters way overdo that side. And my yoga, Pilates people way overdo here. So what we try to do is get them to blend more of a cross-training applicable program so that they're covered and not have to give up what they love doing. And the final piece is maximum anaerobic power and speed. That's Gabby Thomas. She's the world-ranked 200-meter runner. She works out right here in Austin. Also, I don't need any of my clients to have that kind of speed, but I need them to move against the speed of life. And life comes at them pretty fast. So perfect example, they don't have to have that kind of acceleration. But I'm training a 78-year-old woman and she's unstable and she goes to fall, she may have to catch herself pretty quick. That requires a lot of velocity, a lot of impact control on top of stability and strength. So you can see how if I'm designing a program where someone's getting coached to perform all of these pillars at one time during the course of a week or a periodized cycle, it's a lot and it can get really overwhelming. So clients come in and they're like, hey, I know I need zone 2, I need some HIIT, I need strength, I need stability, I need speed. Where do I start? And usually they start on their own, they get really hurt, and then they come to us for physical therapy, and we try to get them on a better plan. But let's say you did go to one of these high-end longevity clinics. Atia's in here in town. He's out here in Southwest Austin. His clinic starts at $75 grand a year. John Asher in Vistage has one up in Dallas. He's in the $40,000 to $60,000 a year range. Really, really pricey, real expensive. You'll get a lot of blood work, a lot of genetic testing. We'll go through some of it just so you have an idea. Again, we just sort of pick and choose for our clients what the most efficient ways of measuring those metrics are. But instead of spending months and months and months gathering all this information, we just get them right into the plan. Let's start eating better and living better and exercising more intelligently right now. But if you went to the clinic, you test 5 key biometric measurements. The first one's grip strength. So this is a super easy intervention. I've got the dynamometer here, so I can just squeeze it in the clinic with my client, super low intervention, no risk of injury. They squeeze it, I get a number. I need my males to be over 100 and my females to be over 70. Everybody in these talks likes to see how they compare to Chad's number anyway. So we'll just pass it around. You just hold it in your hand however you want to, squeeze it as hard as you can. It'll keep track of your highest number. When you're done, hit start and pass it along. And just keep kind of a mental idea of your number and we'll come back around to it.
Did you bring one of those machines with the hammer?
Hey, Sam, can I ask you?
Yeah.
I promise I won't weigh in too much. So, longevity, escape velocity.
Yeah.
Brian Johnson. There's all these different things of people wanting to outlive our lifespan, and what we're talking about today, though, we're talking health span meeting our lifespan, right? So living a healthy life through the end of our life, purely. This isn't extension, this isn't we're gonna be 150, right? That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, if my client is destined genetically to 87, I just want 87 to be the best years of his life.
Yep, okay.
Right? I'm not concerned with 103 on every experimental medication or treatment.
Yep.
You know, so
Okay.
yeah, it's prioritization of health span rather than strictly lifespan.
Perfect.
So this intervention tells me quite a bit. It's a hack that people can't really train for. I know immediately if they've done their strength training or not. And then 2, if she has a big discrepancy side to side, if she's 87 on one hand and 52 on the other, something's going on. She had a TIA, she's got a neurological deficiency, I need to refer back to her doctor, refer out to a neurologist in our network, get her the care she needs, and no one may have picked up on that. But if she starts working out in the gym with that kind of imbalance, she's just gonna get hurt, which is probably why she came to see us in the first place. And the next number we'll measure is VO2. Anybody had a VO2 test? You probably have. You had one? So we don't do this in our clinic, but it's hot in the media right now to everybody know what their VO2 number is. This is your maximum aerobic assessment. How close are you to Lance Armstrong or not? No one but athletes used to do this when I was in school, and that's primarily who we measured. Now it's become more mainstream, so if somebody insists on gathering this data, we'll head down to UT with them. We got a good affiliation there, get them tested, or there's some mobile clinics that'll come to your facility and do this for you. The test is pretty miserable. You basically stick a tube in your mouth, run as fast as you can for 18 to 22 minutes until you pass out, and then you get more data than you ever knew you needed. But it gives you your heart rate zones. Yeah, it's not really good. So if somebody insists on getting it, we'll get it for them. But I'm interested in making them fitter or keeping them as fit anyway. I really don't care what the number is specifically. I just want to get them better or maintain what they have. Most people get a DEXA scan now. This has sort of become the gold standard of body fat percentage testing. So there's low radiation, so we don't have people do this a lot, but if somebody has data for when they were in their 20s, like I do from back at UT when we were in this program, then I can go in my 40s and compare those numbers and see, am I holding it together as a middle-aged guy? Am I falling off somewhere? So this being the gold standard, and all of my women having had this test by the time they're 50 to check for osteopenia and osteoporosis, it can be incorporated into the data and into the program, but it's not make or break. We usually have people, if they really like to see data, just get a Hume scale for their house. And we don't have any affiliation with them. I found this biometric data to be the closest to what I've seen on the DEXA. So if I've got a tech bro who's super into analytics and data, I'll have him have one of those in his house, try not to do it more than once a week so we can track data over time. For some people that's crazy motivating, for other people it's humbling and humiliating, so it really depends on the client personality. Next, we'll test stability. We'll test stability, either me visually or just actually taking people through the routine in every one of our clients when they come in. Because it's one of the key pillars. We'll train it for everybody as we go along. We'll do a mechanism of it here. Everybody go ahead and stand up.
Caveat to this is if you're wearing heels, this is really hard.
Yeah, in heels it's a lot more fun.
Heels.
Will you take that back to
As long as we're not doing that.
Yeah, that's phase 2.
Be cool, Bangino did that.
Sorry.
So you'll get to pick your foot, so you can pick your dominant side. And then usually in the clinic we'll do this barefoot because we do a lot of foot training and integration into people's stability work. But for the sake of professional courtesy in here, we'll keep our shoes on. And we're gonna time for a minute, balance on that foot, bring the other leg up and just balance there. So as we go through the minute, we'll start to feel a little bit of fatigue. We gotta start over, you already stopped. So if you feel a little fatigue at the bottom of your foot, you may feel that start to come up the side of your calf, maybe all the way up into your leg and your hip. I'm combining several of those factors now. I've got to have strength to hold this position. I've got to have the endurance to maintain it. And I have to have neurological balance and coordination just to do it. So I can easily have somebody do this when they brush their teeth during the day or while they're doing other exercises, so I can train as many mechanisms at one time as possible. As it gets more fatigued, we see where after like the 20, 30 second mark, where my limitations really start to fall in. And again, most people have a distinct discrepancy side by side, which can really help with their cognitive development health if I can train both sides to be the same. So coming up here, about 10 seconds left, you kind of feel what I'm talking about. If I can make it 60 seconds with my client, he's got a better than not chance of making it into his 80s. If he can't stand for 60 seconds like this, he's probably not going to see 74. So that's my metric. So that's where I'm starting. So that helps me get a lot of buy-in from people. Now the advanced phase, close your eyes. Vestibular only, that's where we want to move people. And relax. So if I can, go ahead and have a seat, relax. If I can get my client to stand with his eyes closed for a minute, he's going to see 90 plus. That's what we see in the literature. And it's not perfect, but it's repeatable data.
That every day.
You could certainly practice that every day. We integrate it to be more fun than that with our clients doing different movements in the studio, throwing the ball, bouncing the ball off the wall, jump and land, whatever if they have a sport more applicable to that. But
You guys actually did a really good job.
yeah, that was good.
Although props to you, Dan, you guys were like
Yeah, that was good.
A+.
The folks in Houston, not that Houston's the healthiest place ever, we're like all over the place, smacking over chairs and everything else. The next thing we'll do is the get-up test. Doesn't have anything to do with boxing. You just start in that position. So we don't have room to do it ever in these presentations, but you would lay supine like that on the ground with your arms out to the side, and then I time you, and you have to be able to get up from that position in less than 3 seconds. If you can get up from that spot on your back, even using your hands in less than 3 seconds, better than not odds, you're going to make it into your 80s. And if you can get up from that position without your hands, no hands touching the ground at all, which is pretty difficult for anybody but a kid, you got a better not chance of seeing 90.
A stupid question. Why? What goes into the reasoning for that simple exercise? What is it?
It's an interesting movement that combines a lot of the factors of those pillars. Cognitive, control and neurological coordination, strength, stability, flexibility. So as we age, there's a very important coordination and relationship between how stable we are how tight we are and how loose and mobile and flexible we are. And they have to be in synergy. I can't be a loosey-goosey yoga instructor with no strength. I'm not going to age well. And I can't be a power lifter with no mobility. I won't age well. So that movement is a real good combination just to assess it. The key is if somebody can't get up off the ground, even using their hands in less than 3 seconds, they're not going to see 70. That's the literature metric. So that usually helps me get buy-in from people. I wouldn't necessarily test every client prospectively doing this, because when they come in, if I can tell he's probably not going to be able to get on the ground, much less get up, I'm not going to humiliate him, but I know that's a big spot I need to intervene.
My question is more, you're saying 80s, 90s, but at what age are you making that assessment? Is it
You can do it.
going to 90?
The literature does it usually in people's 30s and 40s. Usually middle age is where they test it, because it's jaded older. Because if you test kids doing that, everybody can do it. And if you test college kids, 95% of them can do it. But you test 45-year-old guys, less than half of them can do it. And so that gives you a pretty good buy-in from the client, because they're like, oh, wow, I've got a great bench press. I can squat this weight, but I can't get out of my own car and I can't get up off the ground. So that way we know, hey, man, I'm not going to take weights away from you, but you got other factors you need to train. Helps me get some buy-in from the patient.
Another good one is being able to tie your shoes while standing.
Combination of way harder. Yeah.
Yeah, like putting your socks on
Uh-huh.
while standing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I always tell my clients, it's like, unless you want to be up late night ordering one of those big sock hammocks that you put the sock in, the big shoe horn to put your shoe on while you're laying in bed, if you don't want to be that guy, then you got some working out to do. So since we didn't have room to do the supine test, we do a modified version in my studio. All of our chairs are the worst ergonomic design you could possibly have on purpose.
Really pretty.
They're pretty. But they force my client's hip below the knee angle. So that's like if my client drove a Porsche or some kind of hot rod with a bucket seat, that's it. And most of those guys over 65 can't get out of it. So I always tell my guys, like, hey, you want to drive that Viper for the rest of your life? You got to be able to do this. And I'll purposely bring people in who think they're fit, have them sit in that chair, and then they look around for arms to get out of it, and they can't do it, especially my guys over the age of 70. So that helps me get buy-in as well. So we'll show you what this test looks like. You guys can just get kind of up towards the edge of your chair. I won't make you lower your chair, which we would do in the studio. And then bring your feet and your knees parallel. And I'm going to bring arms up overhead. The whole idea is without leaning forward any further than you have to, you want to stand straight up. Squeeze your butt, stand up. We can all do that. Sit back down with control. So that's phase one. If I can do that, she's probably going to make it past 75. Now I really need all of my clients to be able to do it with one leg. So pick whichever leg you want. You can pick your side. You need to be able to stand up and stick it. And then relax, have a seat. So I have people in the clinic all the time, runners, marathon distances, triathletes, extremely fit individuals that cannot stabilize their body in space because they either lack core strength, stability, they've had a previous injury. So I can teach them that if they can't at least build that over time, they're compromising their long-term wellness and health, despite how aerobically fit they are. And then we get into the world of genetic testing, right? This is a big black box for a lot of people. You'll get tens of thousands of dollars of genetic data at some of these high-end clinics, all of which we'll see in a second you can get for less than $300. But so we'll interpret this data for a lot of clients. If they want it, I'll show them how to get it. I don't really encourage it because it too can be overwhelming. And again, we start into this paralysis by analysis concept where they're gathering 250 to 400 blood markers. Atia's clinic does 400 blood markers. Mark Hyman's function does 240. It's more data than you ever knew you had or you ever know what to do with. But if somebody's already got it, we'll help them go through it. Everybody gets tested for food sensitivity. This is really interesting, especially because this can change as we age, as hormones shift, especially for my perimenopausal clients. So people that don't have certain food sensitivities when they're younger start to develop them. So if he's having body aches, joint pain, sleep trouble, I know exactly where I can probably make an intervention, especially if I have the data. It's probably going to be one of the big three. It's going to be sugar, gluten, or dairy, so we can start there. But if we've got genetic data, we know, oh, it's actually avocado, or it's corn, or it's something obscure that we didn't think about. Same for caffeine. So I have a lot of women that come in my clinic. Number one complaint I get from my perimenopausal women, they're not sleeping. But if she used to be a fast metabolizer of caffeine and now she can't metabolize it, she's up several times a night. She's frustrated, she doesn't know why. Before I even get her to HRT or hormone management with a good endocrinologist, as coach, I can intervene there and maybe make a big difference in her quality of life. Because I don't care how hard I'm exercising her or how much protein I'm feeding her, if she can't recover, she's not sleeping, it ain't gonna matter. Okay? So these are really more interesting kind of party favor concepts when it comes to genetic testing. I can promise everybody, nobody gets the food test and finds out they need more gluten or processed food or sugar or Diet Coke, right? So there's not gonna be anything there. The rest is to test for those real big free horsemen. I call it the what am I actually gonna die of testing. And this can go one of two ways, just like any of the other metrics. My client can find out that he's at high risk of cancer, Alzheimer's, or cardiovascular disease, and it can really motivate him to change his life, to hire a coach, to see a better doctor, to get off medication, or it can overwhelm him and he feels like he doesn't have a chance and he's out and he gives up. So luckily we work very closely one-on-one with our patients, so I know her personality, sometimes better than she does. I know if this is gonna be a good idea for her or not. So perfect example for me, I don't have any genetic risk factors here, knock on wood, but I've got a lot of them cardiovascularly. So I don't have high cholesterol, but what cholesterol I do have is really, really sticky. So genetic profiling told me that. I can't change it. It's 100% genetic. So my focus, if I really wanted to empower myself to live well, goes right there. And instead of trying to address all this at the same time, I kind of now know where to focus. So that's how it can be really helpful. Differently, my wife has both of these Alzheimer's 4 genetic mutations. So she is as genetically predisposed to Alzheimer's as she could possibly be. Big history of it in her family, lots of lineage risk. So her focus is going to go here. And here's the kicker. The treatment, right, diet and exercise wise, is the same. So like we still have to live better, eat better, prioritize it the rest of our lives. Whether I know about it or not, I really have to change the way that I live to manage it. Because none of these are typecasting either us or our clients to these outcomes. Because we know through the whole area of epigenetics that I can turn on and off the activation of any of these genes by what I eat, how I live, how stressed I am, how much sleep I get, and how happy I am.
Do you live near a golf course?
I do not.
Good, because that causes Alzheimer's because of the pesticides.
Oh God, that's right.
Yeah, I read an article.
Thank
Would
you,
make
buddy.
would make total sense.
Yeah.
I was like, is it good because it's relaxing? No, it's actually terrible for you. Yeah, your exposure certainly to pollutants is a huge factor. Yeah. Yeah, what's the proximity?
I don't know.
Well, we're across the street.
Look up the-
It's such a pretty view though.
Well, we're across the street, so we can't
Okay.
see it. So it's, I think,
Just get big fans. So if the clients really want to do this testing, we send them to 3x4 Genetics. This is like the new jacked up 23andMe. Cheek swab, mail it in for less than $300. You get a 35-page report, more data than you ever knew what to do with. But they do a great job of analysis and display, so you can then take that report to your doctor, to your coach, to your trainer, go over it, and help you kind of focus and come up with a plan. A lot of what it'll tell you is the stuff you already know. We don't have any affiliation with them in my clinic. It's really easy to read and understand. So clients who are really obsessed with the kind of data that is here, that's where we send them. But again, you can see now we've spent sometimes months with some of these patients in these high-end longevity clinics gathering data. I'm like, when do you guys actually start? Let's actually start the plan, and then we can get as much data as you want. But this gives people the tendency to want to overreach because they're like, oh, I got some of this, I got some of that. I got to worry about my caffeine. What about my HIIT? What about my zone 2? They overdo, and that's what overdoing looks like. So that's my back when I was 14 actually. So I had a spinal defect down in my lower lumbar down here. You're kind of born with some instability. Finally, by the time I was 14, I was really active, played a lot of sports. I was a skinny kid, not a lot of stability. My spine shifted forward. I had a really hideous fracture. Wore a brace on and off for a year, finally ended up having to have surgery, start high school in a back brace. It was pretty miserable. So the majority of my high school career was spent doing a lot of intensive physical therapy, which got me very interested in this field of conditioning my body, helping my clients do the same thing. One, to treat the injuries that they already have, but hopefully to avoid the rest of them in the future if possible. So I was still young and dumb, and I insisted against everybody's advice of playing a full contact sport when I was a senior in high school. And that by far wasn't my last injury, being young and stupid, but I had a pretty good support system along the way. She tended to stick it out, which I'm really happy about. But when I graduated from college in exercise physiology, that was the model for wellness and holistic health. All we studied were these athletes because they were the only athletes in the gym lifting weights on purpose from the 70s through the 90s. It didn't do me any good to learn about that to train a 45-year-old stockbroker or a 72-year-old retired female. So when I came out and realized, oh, nobody looks like that, what have I done? We saw that we had to take a completely different direction in the industry despite our basis of education. Because that, from the 70s, peaked here in the early 2000s. And nothing against Ronnie Coleman, he's an amazing athlete, but that's him now. 54 years old, multiple surgeries, can't walk. My friends and I in the studio, even in the gyms and the physical therapy clinics, trying to get stronger and stronger, we idolize this guy. This is him getting on stage.
You know what, there's someone in the room that doesn't know who Ronnie Coleman is. Think of the biggest person you've ever seen.
If you can enable media.
That's what we're talking about. Crazy. He's up in Dallas. He was
Dallas area, yeah.
While he competed, he was a police officer.
Oh, we're not on Wi-Fi.
Oh, will you
that's why.
pull up? I thought usually it'll mirror.
Is it Austin
Guest.
title guest?
NSP guest.
That's locked.
Do we have a Wi-Fi password, right?
They don't have. Here, I'll let you. Is that? Use my.
We can get
It's
on
right
Sam.
there.
Xperity, but I couldn't even find it.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
I think I can just get on Sam's phone.
Oh, just using
Yeah,
my
get on
phone.
the phone.
That's
It's
what
like
I'm
you use
on mine.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll just use my phone.
Okay. Hold on. Where is your password? We'll play it here and then we'll come back.
Yeah. So this is him getting on stage a couple years ago to give a talk at 54 years old.
How old is that?
54. Yeah. So thanks, baby. You can pull it back up. So we knew pretty quickly that if I trained clients, especially my general fitness clients, in that extreme athlete model, I was going to break them before I did them any good. And it didn't matter how fit they were, how strong they were. I was just going to break them down. Because this is the way exercise and injury works. It's directly inversely proportional. It's really more of a J curve than the U you see here, but it works like this. If I spend more time exercising, once I pass the point of no return, my injury risk continues to rise. So what do we usually do? I know that my injury risk is high if I don't do anything. Certainly if I don't exercise, my risk of chronic disease is very high, and I'm going to get hurt. So I start exercising, and I get some results. Maybe I lose some weight. I feel better. I get stronger. My risk of injury goes down, and then what happens? I want more, or I exercise harder, or I'm getting results and I get the fuel for it, or somebody pushes me too hard. I train and train and train and train. I overtrain at the peak, which dramatically inflames my tissue, and that leads to my first series of injuries. So we see so many of our patients that come in rocking back and forth in this kind of ping pong fashion, because even if they're undertrained, they usually have to do so because they've gotten so overtrained, they got injured, they had to quit, and now their tissue's inflamed on either end. And I know from all the data that the number one way to increase my risk of chronic disease is to raise the inflammation level of my body. That's why health professionals will call this concept inflammaging. But high inflammation is the precursor to cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, metabolic syndrome, everything I'm going to die of anyway. So regardless of my genetic profiling, if I can keep the inflammation down, I dramatically reduce my risk of sickness and mortality. So my job as coach is to keep my client in the sweet spot based on their individual metrics so that I'm not pushing them too hard and I'm not allowing them to overtrain, but I'm also motivating them to keep them off that extreme. Either way, I want to try to keep them in the middle. If I invert the curve and look at it in terms of results, my results will go up as I exercise. If I do no exercise, I get no results. Pretty basic. But as I start training, my results go high. I want more and more. If I've got a type A personality client that wants to overreach and push herself in the gym as hard as she does in business, she gets less results because she overtrains. If I allow her to do that, I push her outside of what we call our ideal training zone. She gets injured over and over again. She gets really frustrated. So many of the patients we see have been through iteration after iteration of this on their own, getting bad advice, bad coaching. They're really frustrated. So they now equate exercise with injury. And that's what we really try to change for them. This is I call this the inflammation of aerobic athlete cycle. So every marathon runner, triathlete, any extreme exerciser, CrossFitter that I've trained over the years falls somewhere into this pattern. They will all overtrain. Maybe they haven't exercised for most of their life, so now they got to catch up. They start too hard. They get really, really hungry because overtraining makes us want to eat. Our body's trying to repair the damage that we've done to it in the gym. They overeat, they gain weight. Little by little, I'm putting more and more impact on my tissue till finally I have an injury, and then I'm inactive and I'm in physical therapy. So let's say my client is an athlete. She's been in physical therapy for a foot stress fracture. If she's a runner, very common that I see. She feels like she has ground to make up because she missed 6 months healing that fracture. Now she goes and overtrains again, falls right back into the same pattern. But along the way, at each point, her inflammation gets worse and worse and worse until finally she's injured. And the only thing that cools down her tissue, the only recovery option she has is just to stop training altogether. So when we see them in the physical therapy side coming into my PT clinic, they're right here and they're really frustrated. And some of them don't even want to exercise anymore because they assume they're just going to get hurt. This is another easy way to display that exact same concept. I haven't trained a single client who over cardios and over exercises who hasn't gained more weight than they started with after their marathon, after their swim event, after their triathlon, whatever it is they train for. So if I can convince them to train smarter at a lower volume model, they'll do way better even with the weight management and the aesthetics because they're not inflamed, they're not overtrained, and they're not hurt. Because we all know what a lifetime of just cardiovascular training does without proper eating, without strength training. It's not really that pretty, and you're still dead at 76. Why? Because you fell in your own bathroom, you weren't stable, you weren't strong, you're doped up on sleeping pills and pain pills. And if Ozzy lived to the same age, I guarantee you he never did a stitch of cardio in his life. So it shows you how overrated that type of training alone is. We go through this metric with patients in our clinic all the time. This is our total stress capacity graphic. So all the literature will tell me as a coach that my client, and myself for that matter, can only handle about 60 hours of cumulative stress in a week. That's everything. That's good stress, that's bad stress, that's exercise, relationship, work. Well, most of my clients are already working 40 to 50 hours a week. So they're 2/3 of the way to threshold before I've even seen them. And then what if she's running a business, she's got kids, she's got family, 3 kids in 4 different sports in 7 different states every weekend? That's what I'm dealing with. So all the logistics have her at capacity before she's even started thinking about herself. So then let's say my client wants to have a social life. He goes out a couple days a week. They need a babysitter. They need nanny, logistics. They're stressed, so they're not sleeping. Now you see how this stacks up when I meet them and I want to try to add exercise and lifestyle change to an already stressed system. It's going to be really hard if I start pounding on them. They're already set up to fail. And that's what most coaching will do. Try to train their way out of this by overtraining, and they just end up hurt and not training in the first place. So as a coach, I want to either try to bring this stress level down, which is hard. They're not going to quit their job or their family. Or I want to try to raise that capacity up by feeding them and conditioning them correctly. So 2016, 2017 era, we saw this concept playing out more in the professional athlete avenue. We knew it worked great with our clients, but we saw Tom Brady and his coach start to use this even at the top levels of extreme sport. We didn't train any pro athletes at the time, but when they started talking about things like pliability and cross-training and periodization, we knew we were on the right track. Alex Guerrero is Tom's coach, and what Alex said in this book and in the promotion, regardless of what you think about Tom Brady, the content was actually pretty good. There are in this book, I have to tell you, a lot of pictures of Tom Brady, right? Because it's Tom Brady. But what Alex said was like, hey, look, my guy, because if you train Tom Brady, you don't need another client. You got one client. My guy gets the shit beat out of him every Sunday on the field. Why would I bring him into the gym all week long and do the exact same thing? He wants to play into his mid-40s at the top level of his sport. If I pound on his tissue, he's just going to get hurt. He can't keep playing. It doesn't matter how good his performance would be if I give him a kick-ass workout. If he's injured, he can't perform at all. So when he's in the gym with his trainer at 44, 45, back in the corner doing their bands, their stability work, their eyes closed training, everyone else in that Patriots training center was slamming heavy weights, throwing medicine balls around. All the 20-year-olds are injured, and this guy's 45 and still playing. So that was the difference. And then we started to see other 40-plus-year-old athletes change coaches, change training mechanisms so that they could keep playing into their 40s at those high-impact events. They realized they can't take the impact out of their sport, so they have to take it out of their training. So we knew if it was working for elite athletes at that level, it had to work for our clients. Sure enough, we started removing more impact from their schedules because life was impactive enough and got great
Have
results.
you guys seen? I'm sorry to interrupt, but have you guys seen the special on the Olympic basketball team
Court of Gold.
where LeBron James is carrying around his little lumbar support and all of them? He's like carrying it around. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's funny to see 40-year-old top athletes like doing the same stuff that old middle-aged guys like us do. Like make sure they have a lumbar support in their car. Make sure they have a heating pad. Get plenty of recovery from your workout. Yeah, the 20-year-olds get away with it. They don't have to do that. And the next seismic shift was learning that we cannot coach women the same way we coach men. You cannot feed them the same. You cannot train them the same. And if I do that as a coach, I do her an extreme disservice. Stacy Sims is really our source for all of this data. She started publishing women-only data probably 10 to 12 years ago. She works out of the university in New Zealand. That's where her clinic is. She's written a couple of books, one in her late 30s, early 40s when she was coaching the pre-perimenopausal athlete, and the next when she was in her 50s when she coaches post-perimenopausal and menopausal athletes as she became herself. So a lot of that data dramatically shifted the focus that we took with what was more than half of our clientele, which was female clients. When I came through school, we all participated in the same physical fitness studies. We all gathered the same data. More than half of the students in my class were women. So we all gathered data, and when it came time to publish, our female professor was like, hey, girls, sorry, we can't account in the software for the fluctuations in your menstrual cycle hormonally, so we got to leave your data out. So we're just going to publish the male data. And that was true in 100% of every study that I participated in. So when I came out of UT, I knew exactly how to train 20 to 24-year-old men. And that was it. We had no female data. So she brought it to the marketplace and to the industry so we could see just how glaringly different it is. And that's one of the major reasons. I don't know the last time any of us looked at the pre-perimenopausal hormone cycle for an average 28-day period, but that's it. And this is only tracking 4 major hormones. She's got 50 coursing through her body. So I can't possibly train her here when her hormones are peaking and she'll run through a wall for me the same way I coach her when she's luteal or, God forbid, menstrual. She'll get frustrated. She's way higher injury risk out here as her relaxin hormone goes high. When I see that and she goes into perimenopause and this goes into 6 dimensions, and then when she's menopausal, that goes flat. So I, as a coach, if I'm going to train her for a 25-year period, like most of my clients that I've seen, she's going to go through all of those life cycles under my guidance. I've got to be able to keep up. Just for comparison, the average 28-day male hormone cycle gives me a lot more leeway, right? So obviously, I can't train those 2 clients the same. Another way to look at it, this is what happens to my female client's hormones as she ages. She'll peak way later than my men do in her mid-30s. Usually she's done having kids, if that's what she's decided by this point, but not always. Plenty of my clients have had kids all the way into their 40s, which shifts this metric dramatically. But my job as her coach is not to make this precipitous fall off any worse. Because if I train her like a dude, these hormones are going to fall flat, and she's going to get even more frustrated. I also have to make sure that as soon, if not right before she starts exhibiting any symptoms hormonally, I get her with a good endocrinologist and we start giving her the HRT that she needs. So for my female clients, proper androgen or hormone support as early as possible is the number one way to prevent her chronic disease. The number one way to prevent cancer in women is to give her estrogen when she needs it, contrary to popular belief for the last 25 years. So we try to work with our community, get her the support she needs. My men, totally different runway. So he'll peak in his 20s. His decline is very slow and steady. So at any point, someone will come along, notice his symptoms, and they'll give him TRT, no problem. They're probably giving him TRT back here before he needs it because he just says he wants it. because male hormones get handed out by candy and women's don't. So that's another thing we really help her navigate. But both my clients see the same concept. Based on our price point, they're usually in their 40s to 50s. They want this body back, so they do this type of training, and it breaks them. So I have to show both of them how to train appropriately, because he can take as much testosterone as he wants, but if he doesn't train correctly, he doesn't eat correctly, it still ends up pretty bad. That's high testosterone your whole life without proper training, you're still dead at 71. And that's not wellness, that's not longevity. This metric shows me what, on average, my female clients' aerobic fitness will do over time. I show this to my clients for two reasons. One, I like them to see just how long the time commitment is, that whether they're doing this with me or with a better coach or on their own, this is a big commitment. This is 30, 40 years of doing the right thing and not getting hurt. So whatever she compromises for a bikini boot camp for some friend's wedding back here, if it sets her up for a hip replacement in her mid-50s, her aerobic capacity is going to decline, mostly because she never gets the hormone support she needs and she gets injured along the way. So even this is the fittest 3% of the female population, even they decline precipitously after middle age. So my job as her coach is to flatten that line as much as possible and keep her above what I call the red line of function. This is probably the minimal aerobic capacity she needs to maintain a functional quality of life. Chase her kids and grandkids around, go for a fun bike ride, carry her own groceries, hike and swim if she wants to still. But everybody except my fittest women fall below that line by middle age and have to start giving stuff up. And guess what? My male data in this case looks exactly the same. Why? Because even if he gets androgens probably somewhere in here, he gets TRT, he still exercised way too hard, pounding his body like he did in his 20s and driving his aerobic outcome lower and lower. The data here, this is a little misleading. It looks like this smooths off, right? Like it doesn't get as bad as fast. That's because half the people in this study were dead by the time they mocked them out here. So we don't see this in real life. We see that. 74 years old, that's the cliff. Everybody but my fittest 3% of males and females will fall prey to the one event by 74, the one sickness, the one hospitalization, the one injury that they probably survive, but they just never come back from, right? This is where the health span, lifespan debate really comes to play. So he may continue to live into his 80s, but it's not high quality life. So it's not health span. Okay, we've been going for a bit. Let's take a little break. Everybody hit the head, grab some water if you want, and then we'll come back and we'll learn how to fix it.